Brexit promised some of the cheapest food and cheaper footwear and clothing, I seem to remember.
Food, manufacturers, they're all protected, which means, in simple terms, that instead of paying world prices for food or world prices for cars and so forth from the rest of the world, we pay world prices plus trade barriers that the EU puts on these products that raise their price about 20% on our calculations. So you're paying 20% more for what you buy from the rest of the world. So Brexit gives us the chance to get rid of this protection, sweep it all aside, unlike what the consensus assumed. So yes, we'll pay some tariffs for our exporters, we'll pay some tariffs going into the EU. Actually, we could refund them. They're quite small. They're average about 2%. But our importers could get goods and from the rest of the world and food and manufacturers 20% cheaper. That's huge. It means the cost of living would drop 8%. That's £40 per household adult.
But actually now we're ending up with soaring food inflation. We've got some of the highest food inflation in Western Europe because of Brexit. And the reason that's happening is because we're importing more food and we are running down our food production here. We're no longer subsidising food production and it's making us hostages to a fortune for food. This is not a good situation. The economic situation is dire as well, made a lot worse by Rachel Reeves and her disastrous budget. She's hitting farmers really hard with the inheritance tax and other horrible policies. But really, I know you say, I don't care about farmers, they all voted Brexit, but look, it's your food and you're feeling it now because food inflation is soaring. And this is really, really bad. The only way that a government can control food prices is by having food produced at home, because then they can help subsidise that food production. But this government are absolutely hell-bent on destroying British farming, and that should scare you. The Labour Party also promised a Brexit reset.
At this moment as well, the UK is talking to the European Union about a so-called reset of Brexit, and it's hoping to do a veterinary deal, so food and farm exports. There's lots more red tape now than there was when the UK was a member of the EU. That's kind of a natural consequence of Brexit. But they want to reset that and get rid of a high degree of that red tape, a high alignment, a high ambition deal.
But I hate to tell you that I think that that was also another lie. The Labour Party have since January been using statutory instruments, which are these Henry VIII powers. I don't know if you remember them talking about Henry VIII powers with Brexit. Theresa May tried to do it when Brexit first happened and Gina Miller stopped her. And Boris Johnson tried to do it by proroguing Parliament. Do you remember that in 2019? And Gina Miller stopped him. Now, Keir Starmer appears to be doing something similar. He's using the Henry VIII powers, which Brexit gave the government to deregulate food standards, and not only food standards, chemical standards as well. George Monbiot has picked up on this and wrote about it in The Guardian this week. Now, the problem with this, it's like saying, I want to marry you to your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you say, yes, I'm going to stay faithful to you, it's only you, but actually behind the scenes, you're having lots of affairs. It's similar to that. What he's doing is saying, yes, Europe, I want to align with you. And at the same time, they're deregulating and they're agreeing a trade deal with India. We signed that just this week when Modi was here. But that has to go through at least some parliamentary process. It's not great. It's what the Conservatives sorted out. It's called the Trade and Agriculture Commission. When Labour were in opposition, they called it a SOP. But the India deal has to go through that process. So at least there is some parliamentary oversight. The problem we have is with the American deal. The American deal is a letter, really, and Keir Starmer is arguing that it's a memorandum of understanding, so it doesn't need to go through the Trade and Agriculture Commission. So he's just saying, my signature is enough. My sovereign signature is enough. And the American food system is so deregulated. And with Trump, it's even more deregulated. They check nothing. And Keir Starmer, since he's been in government, has actually been removing funding from checks here as well. So the chance of substandard imports coming from America are high. The chance of hormone-fed beef getting in here are high. We already have illegal meat coming in every day anyway.
170 kilos of meat have been seized by environmental health officers in Dartford. It comes amid growing concern that illegally imported produce from Europe could carry African swine fever. The disease does not affect humans, but could have a significant impact on UK livestock.
Because of the inadequate checks, post-Brexit checks, we're just not able to do it, but there doesn't even seem to be really any intention of trying to deliver this. And if you put together this with the deregulation via statutory instrument, Henry VIII powers, it's a very worrying reality, because they're saying one thing: we want a Brexit reset, we're going to align to European rules, and the right wing are saying it's Brexit betrayal. But what actually they're doing is they are trying to get through the very awful Brexit that really many people didn't vote for, which is the deregulation and the nightmare American trade deal, chlorinated chicken, hormone-fed beef, blah, blah, blah. And it's very, very concerning. That's concerning for our health, but it makes sense that they're doing this together with running down farming and SMEs, because the big, greedy American global corporations love to go in and hoover everything up. They've done this in Mexico, for instance, with NAFTA, a very similar thing where the Mexican farmers were thrown off the land and the American conglomerates just cleaned up. And that is what Keir Starmer is trying to facilitate here. But it also means that our chances of getting back to Europe are diminished considerably. Our democracy is really ended because once he's able to use Henry VIII power to rewrite primary law, which actually has an impact on citizens' rights, as George Monbiot confirmed, these deregulations will impact the Good Friday Agreement and Northern Ireland and our TCA and everything else. If Keir Starmer gets away with doing that, as Boris Johnson tried, then we're in really, really difficult territory. We are going into authoritarianism, and Parliament falls away. It is a Reichstag fire moment. There is opportunity for a judicial review. We have to hope that somebody decides to do that. If it isn't stopped, then I can see the opening for chaos in Ireland, potentially withdrawing from the ECHR as well, and real problems for Europe moving forward for all of us, for all of our futures. So it's not good news that I'm giving you here, it's bad news, but there is hope if we do manage to intervene and stop this from happening, as has happened twice before, 3 times lucky, that we will perhaps be able to get a reset, the reset that we all want with Europe. And even Goldman Sachs this week has come out and said we need to get back into the single market and the customs union because Brexit is not working. Brexit isn't working for most people in this country. And Keir Starmer is not a Democrat. He's not listening to the people. Now a huge majority want to rejoin the European Union or want to get back within the EEA at least. It is in our best interest and in Europe's best interest for us to be united, to defeat Russia, to defeat Trump, and be part of our own continent. And that is what I hope will happen. On top of this, this week the Citizens' Challenge, which was lodged some 5 years ago, I think, by Caroline Lucas, former leader of the Green Party, Ben Bradshaw, a Remainer fighter MP for Labour, and also Alan Smith, who was an SNP MP. And finally, it was heard. It was only a paper hearing, which is the judges just read the arguments on paper. It's not a proper oral hearing. They found for two of their 3 points, but the case itself didn't succeed at this juncture. But there is an avenue for appeal, and that is good news, because if the appeal is accepted, then they will go to the Grand Chamber, and everything will be flushed out in a proper hearing. They will be able to push back on the arguments that the government have made. The courts accepted that the government's made changes after the interference by Russia in our elections, but it's true that what they have done is inadequate. So those arguments will be able to go through the court, but the ECHR is slow. And if Keir Starmer's statutory instrument UK EU-USA prosperity deal blows up, then that might scupper the hearing with the ECHR. And you can understand why they would want to leave the ECHR, knowing that this case is here and could bring to light the criminality behind Brexit. So it really is critical that we keep an eye on what's going on, and we listen to people who are telling us the truth, and we do not allow the dark forces to divide us and scapegoat people. So it is really important that we back and support all of the campaigns. And in September, when Donald Trump is here, the brilliant Zoe Gardner is organising an anti-Trump protest, and I really hope to see you all there, and hopefully we will get some tractors there too.